Nietzsche was a forking lightning. No, not what you think. Fork. Okay, forking in different directions. And it created space, direction, and channels for people to follow. Without Nietzsche, we would not have had Sigmund Freud or Carl Gustav Jung or an immeasurable account of semi-genius or industrious or successful scientists, philosophers, and impactful people. Without Nietzsche as a foundation, we would not have psychoanalysis, and we would not have Carl Gustav Jung's psychology, basically. Um, so Nietzsche was absolutely not about small, narrowed down, specialized areas. He, he, his scope was so broad, and this is also why you have to understand something. Nietzsche, Nietzsche dug deeper than anyone have probably ever done, um, and climbed higher than anyone has ever probably done. He looked as deep as nobody ever into the psyche and the history and the future of mankind. Okay, and I think I'm not overpromising here or idealizing Nietzsche. And he had the ability, because he is a philologist and a poet and a lyricist, he had the ability to communicate this, and he was fully aware that he can't. So, in other words, his ability to communicate is absolutely extraordinary. Therefore, any translation lacks in meaning and depth. But this being given, he knew that he cannot fully transport his perception. Absolutely impossible. In other words, we are living on the planet Earth. We are not living in Earth, in the heat, the magma, the molten metal, the currents, the content, the infinity of this three-dimensional, um, multifaceted world within the planet. We don't live there. We live only on the surface. And the same is when we communicate and relate to other people. We never know a person from the inside. Never. We cannot also love a person as what the person really is. We can enjoy the reflection and the radiation and fragrance and the emanation, the vibration, anything that is coming, any signal that comes from the person, but it is all mitigated, and it's all in some way superficial. The individuality and the underlying subconsciousness and consciousness, and yeah, the individuality of the person is infinite and can never be fully perceived. Um, and also, I believe Nietzsche went full circle in some sense. He laid the foundation for a full circle. He understood that what consciousness is, and he understood that what religion and spirituality is, and these are connected. Let me lay it down. You can be very highly intelligent and capable. You could be a superhuman being without any consciousness that is super successful, super intelligent, super beautiful, and make absolutely beautiful artworks, music, poetry, be the best hunter, and so on and so on and so on, without consciousness. Consciousness, as Nietzsche said, is necessary for communication. So it means to communicate with yourself and see yourself in a sort of a virtual mirror. So it means to mirror yourself and be able to introspect, get out of yourself, look back at you, and have a conversation with you. And based on that, you can communicate your state, your condition, your shape, your thought, whatever, to others. Therefore, consciousness is necessary for communication. So it's linked to social life, communication, and dumbing down things, simplifying things. So you are sense. You are sense, okay? Your identity is unique and infinitely individual because you have one mother and one father that only your sisters and brothers have, if you have sisters and brothers. But this mother has another mother and another father, and your father has another mother and another father, and so on. So it's an inverted pyramid of ancestors. And this creates an absolutely unique mix of DNA information combined with an absolutely unique experience and education, resulting in your infinite individuality, and you are that sense. You are that thing that survived everything before you, and therefore you are the sense. But if you communicate, if you, even when you perceive yourself, everything that comes in your consciousness is already common sense. It's dumped down, refined, reprocessed, reduced, and even in some way reprocessed. So a lot of things are cut out, and a lot of things are improved, like the contrasts are higher, and when you see something that is almost a straight line, it will look like a straight line, like in optical illusions. Our eye improves contrast and shapes so that we are not lost in a infinitely individual world, because the world is also infinitely individual, and even the most smooth surface or the most straight arrow, when we look, if we would see it the way it is, it would be extremely rough, infinitely rough, and imperfect. But we can see it because our brain just smooths it out for us, okay? So Nietzsche understood this, and he understood that consciousness, therefore, is a mirror necessary to communicate with self and to communicate to others. He also understood that spirituality and religion is the creation, a little bit maybe the same, like a mirrored and maybe dumped down, reduced, or in the sense of spirituality, a distilled version of our experience. So it's a world behind the world. And in the spiritual world, we have archetypes. And Nietzsche predated Carl Gustav Jung's psychology, where Carl Gustav Jung suggests the existence of a collective subconsciousness. Why do I say all of this? This is the full circle. I believe that spirituality and religion ultimately is nothing but subconsciousness and collective subconsciousness at a maximum. Subconsciousness is the subconscious part of everything that you are, that is individual, not translatable, not fully translatable or communicatable, and something that nobody can ever know about you. While the collective subconsciousness is a part that we share also in our DNA. So if I walk through the grass and I suddenly see a snake, I surprisingly see a snake. I'm surprised by a snake in the grass. I get a very instinctual reaction, an instinct sets in, because literally my reptile brain reacts on that reptile on the ground. Both structures, the snake and my reptile brain, structures that have been there for hundred thousands of years, even before humans were walking the earth. This part of the brain was already in the animals, and the same DNA sequence. And the snake was already there. So the instinct was already there. Therefore, we share the same instinct, the same reaction. It's not super individual, okay? It doesn't have to. And this is the part that we can share. We share the same symbols and subconscious archetypes. Okay, so the snake is like a unique symbolic language. It creates the same associations. The sun, water, air, wind, tree, the tree of life, all these are archetypal, fundamental imprints that we have in our both subconsciousness and, more importantly, collective subconsciousness. So I say this because I find it most interesting to understand that all of this spirituality, religion, is just a translation of our collective subconsciousness into a different language. So for me, since I know the concept that has been created by Nietzsche and then evolved by, now it was, Nietzsche was the foundation and Carl Gustav Jung brought birth to this concept of collective subconsciousness and archetypes. I don't need spirituality or religion. When you understand and listen to Nietzsche at times, the limits of religion and spirituality and subconsciousness, it all blurs. It's all the same. Yeah. So I wanted to say that, and I have another small theory that narcissism is a dysfunction of consciousness. Because see it like this: in the age between 2 years and 12 years, a child is developing consciousness, and it's a download from mother. And in this process of an update for the brain, and not the reptilian brain, no, this is higher consciousness functions is an update from mother, the USB cable gets removed and update is stuck. So, in other words, narcissism is a interrupted dysfunctional consciousness. It is expressed through introject constancy only. It means that people forget the object relation, they forget the world outside, they repress or forget the external existence and loving connection to sovereign, equal people in reality, and fall back into this mirror image of themselves. They look at themselves in the mirror and forget everything else. Yeah. So this is because consciousness is a very new concept and it requires long times of functional parenting in order to be developed. But again, mother and father not necessarily have to be the physical ones. It can happen in different ways. And I know that a lot of people where the USB cable has been, or where there were a lot of interruptions and problems, they still managed to develop this. So this is miraculous and great that only 5% of children in the same circumstances, dysfunctional circumstances, develop severe personality disorders like narcissism or psychopathy. All right, I just had to share this small little video and chain of thought, full circle Nietzsche. Yeah, thank you very much, Nietzsche. You clarified a lot of things for me and raised a lot of new questions.